this decision?
Well, first, let me point out something. In my article, I quoted the president of the South Carolina AFL-CIO, who was critical of the AFL-CIO's very, very early endorsement of President Obama, about 6 months before the even Democratic National Convention. And just to give you an idea of how much organized labor doesn't want this to be talked about, Donna DeWitt, the president of the South Carolina AFL-CIO, was called by a top AFL-CIO official and reminded that the AFL-CIO funds her, and they don't expect this kind of behavior. It was an implicit threat, because this is an embarrassing subject for organized labor to talk about. You know, despite the talk of political independence that many in organized labor have been talking about for the last year, organized labor is still stuck in this Stockholm syndrome of President Obama. Sure, it's one thing to, vote against Romney. It's another to say, as Richard Trumka did, that Obama's been fighting aggressively for workers and unions. Let's look at the last month alone. Obama's passed 3 very anti-worker measures. Let's look at one. He passed an anti-union FAA bill, which, Arthur, your own president, Larry Cohen, described as making the rights of airline workers to unionize worse than it ever was. Union rights for airline workers are now worse than they were under Bush. And this is the only piece...
I want to interrupt for 1 minute because we actually have the clip of Larry Cohen. I wanted to get Arthur to respond. Yeah. Larry Cohen, the president of CWA, blasting these controversial provisions in the FAA reauthorization bill that make it harder for airline and railroad workers to form unions. Cohen was speaking in early February. President Obama signed the bill 2 weeks later.
It means that by statute, workers that are gone forever, 10 years, 20 years, it could be anything. Employer puts them on the list. You need a majority of the whole list or you don't even get an election. And the one provision, the one advancement since the 2008 elections that we have, the only advancement in the entire country as we're under attack every minute, that's a rule. That's not even in this statute. The leadership in the Senate didn't even see fit to include in this gutting of the statute the rule that the Delta is objecting to in the first place. The rule that says, it's a majority of those voting, not a majority of the whole electorate, if you can get to an election. So they've changed the rules to get to an election. You now need 50% of the so-called electorate. But ours, one little crumb of an advancement is left as a rule. So the day there's ever a Republican president elected, and there's now 2 Republicans and 1 Democrat, they're going to strip the rule. The statute will remain. It's worse than it's ever been.
Larry Cohen, president of the Communications Workers of America, Arthur Chaliotis is president of Local 1180 of CWA here in New York. Your response?